Every level of a Jedi explained, starting with level 1, the Jedi Initiate, the beginning of the Jedi path. Also known as younglings, initiates are Force-sensitive children sought after by the Order. These children were all on a special list kept in the Jedi Council's secret vault. Once a child had been identified, a master would travel to their home world to collect them from their parents. Upon their arrival at the Jedi Temple, younglings are taken to the Jedi Creche, a place within the Jedi Temple where the younglings live together as they mature. During their time in the creche, younglings learn the foundations of Jedi arts. First, younglings are split into clans, which are groups of 20. These groups do everything together. They have their own communal spaces, attend classes together, and share meals with one another. In the mornings, initiates go through rigorous classes as part of their education to learn about galactic politics, planets and species, and languages. A mixture of apprentices, knights, and masters teach these classes. Towards the end of their time as younglings, these children receive basic lightsaber training to prepare them for the next stage of their walk as a Jedi. Using non-lethal training sabers and training droids, younglings commit fundamental moves to memory so they become reflexive. After a few years, younglings who demonstrate significant progress in their training are selected to participate in the Gathering, a rite of passage to complete their journey as an initiate. Guided by a qualified Jedi instructor, groups of younglings travel to the remote world of Ilum in the unknown regions. Together, the younglings venture into the snow caves to find their own unique Kyber crystal. The caves themselves are a spiritual test, forcing the younglings to prove they are worthy of a crystal. On the journey back from Ilum, a Mark V architect droid like Huang guides the younglings through the process of building their own lightsaber, incorporating aspects of themselves and their heritage into the weapon they will carry by their side for the rest of their life. A Wookiee, for example, will craft their lightsaber using wood from the Brylark tree, a species native to Kashyyyk, while someone like Anakin Skywalker built his saber with heavy metals to favor his aggressive fighting style. Soon after the younglings return to Coruscant, their training is complete. Now all they have to do is wait for a qualified Jedi Knight to request to have them as their apprentice, or for the Jedi Council to assign them to a master. This is level 2 of a Jedi, the Apprentice. Also known as the Padawan, a Jedi experiences tremendous growth in this stage as the student of an older, experienced Jedi. The instant their apprenticeship starts, everything changes for a young Jedi. In stark contrast to their communal clan life, Padawans eat, train, and sleep primarily with their master alone. This pair will do everything together. As such, a Padawan becomes like their master, picking up mannerisms, skills, and beliefs from them. Through this, a force bond begins to develop between the two. An apprentice will be able to understand and predict their master's next move, while the master can sense their Padawan from many systems away. During downtime from their missions in the galaxy, Padawans continue their combat training by sparring with other apprentices. Rather than study in classrooms, Padawans are assigned intensive studies by their masters. An apprentice continues their education by seeking out topics of interest in the Jedi archives, preparing themselves for the specialization they will take on later in life. Speaking of which, Padawans are actually assigned masters based on the Force traits they exhibit. Essentially, if a youngling shows potential in a certain area, they will be assigned a master who is talented at that. If you were a youngling that was really devoted to learning, you might be assigned to a master like Jocasta Nu. If you were a youngling who was adept at combat, you might be assigned to a Jedi like Mace Windu. In this way, a master is specially qualified to train their Padawan. This is why the Council takes assigning Padawans correctly so seriously. Because the master and apprentice relationship is no small thing. Apprenticeship can last anywhere from a few years to well over a decade. That time must prove fruitful for the Padawan, or all of that time will have been wasted. Unfortunately, this makes apprenticeship a great pruning process for the Jedi Order. What I mean by that is, not all Padawans are meant for the path to knighthood. Some Padawans show great promise, like Obi-Wan under Qui-Gon for example, but others are basically walking liabilities. They make many mistakes, some of which could be fatal or would hurt others. And in some rare cases, the reality of apprenticeship is too much for some, causing them to leave their life in the Jedi Order behind. But for most, a Jedi's Padawan training culminates with the Jedi Trials, a series of tests meant to prove a Padawan is worthy to become a Jedi Knight. The trials consist of 5 main parts. The first is the Trial of Skill, where a Padawan must demonstrate their mastery of lightsaber combat and the forms they have been taught, as well as the various Force powers they possess. Second was the Trial of Courage, which involves a Padawan learner confronting their fears and conquering them. Following the Trial of Courage is the Trial of Flesh. This trial is centered around a test of a Padawan's physical and mental limits to prove their commitment to the Jedi Code and the light side of the Force. In the same vein, the Trial of the Spirit focuses on a Padawan overcoming their flaws and shortcomings. A Padawan must truly let go of their sense of self and give up their self-centered feelings. And finally, there's the Trial of Insight to cap off the Jedi Trials. Apprentices must be smart enough to recognize lies and deception, to prove they've grown in wisdom from the time they were younglings. In certain cases, the Jedi Council might assign a special trial for certain Padawans, and the trials could always be modified at a master's discretion. And in other times, a Padawan might simply prove themselves through an act of heroism. For example, Obi-Wan's feat of defeating Darth Maul counted as his trial. But the trials weren't meant to be easy. Many Padawans failed the trials. For those individuals, an alternate but equally meaningful path to knighthood was an option for those people to continue serving in the Order. But we'll get to that in a minute. Assuming you completed the trials, you were now qualified to attend the knighting ceremony. All Padawans who completed the trials came together before the Order to be knighted. In the ritual, the Padawan's master or another senior Jedi would use their lightsaber to cut off the Padawan's braid, representing the Jedi leaving their life behind as a Padawan and beginning their journey as a full-fledged knight in the Order. This is level 3 of a Jedi, the Knight. Now, as a Jedi Knight, you're responsible for keeping peace in the galaxy. Knights could be sent on a variety of missions across the galaxy to negotiate treaties, investigate crimes, or save a world in crisis. A Jedi Knight's primary purpose is to serve the Republic and protect the vulnerable. Above all, they must do good in all that they do. As a Knight, there were multiple specializations to choose from. Some Jedi Knights chose to become Jedi Consulars, primarily acting as a diplomat. These Jedi served less in a combat role and relied more on their communication skills to work out disagreements or tense situations. Prominent Jedi Consulars included Qui-Gon Jinn, Shaak Ti, and Luminara Unduli. Within the consular role, Jedi could also be healers, seers, teachers, lore keepers, or even scientists. Other Jedi might choose to be a guardian, a role that focused on utilizing elite combat skills. These Jedi often wore armor and were proficient in multiple lightsaber forms. Some Jedi in this field would temporarily volunteer to act as guards for the Jedi Temple. Other jobs included weapons specialists, lightsaber instructors, an ace starfighter pilot, or a peacekeeper. And still more Jedi chose to be a sentinel. Typically, these Jedi were busy out in the galaxy working alongside the citizens of the Republic for the greater good. Sentinels could be detectives, computer slicers, spies, and more. And in the Clone Wars, Jedi Knights would get additional duties as the Republic's leaders on the battlefield, serving as commanders and generals over thousands of clone troopers in the Grand Army of the Republic. As the Jedi Knight grew and matured, eventually they might be called on by the Council to take on a Padawan, or they could take it on themselves to select an apprentice. Now, the roles are reversed. A Knight would seek to pass down all of their knowledge from their specialized field down to their Padawan learner, training them in the ways of the Force so that they too could be a Knight one day. A Knight must ensure their Padawan is well-rounded in all facets of Jedi training, particularly in combat, but also in wisdom and knowledge. Initially, training would be strenuous on the Master, as the Padawan would be inexperienced, but slowly, over time, the two would become more and more like equals. And if their Padawan were to somehow fail the trials, the Jedi Order still had many options for them to continue on their path in the Order, if they chose not to return to their homeworld. These Jedi would go on into the Order's Service Corps, and while they couldn't use lightsabers, there was still plenty of meaningful work for them to do. The Corps was made of 4 branches: the Agricultural Corps, the Educational Corps, the Medical Corps, and the Exploration Corps. The Reassignment Council would place a Jedi into one of these branches based on their skills and talents. The Service Corps was an essential part of the Army of Light in the war against Lord Khan's Brotherhood, And in the Clone Wars, the Service Corps was actually militarized and given command over their own regiments of clone troopers, giving them the chance to serve as near equals to the other Jedi Knights. Over years of service as a Jedi Knight, you would likely train multiple apprentices to knighthood, and go on numerous missions collecting feats and accolades from the Order and the Republic. A Jedi's training is never truly over. In a way, the journey has only just begun with knighthood. As you grow in wisdom and maturity, the Council would eventually take notice. One day, you would be called to the High Council chambers atop the central spire of the Jedi Temple, where the Council would award you the rank of Master, unless you're Anakin.
What?
This is level 4 of a Jedi, the Master. In many ways, Jedi Masters are similar to Jedi Knights. Basically, they're just the enhanced version of a Knight in almost every way. Masters, because of their age and experience, are often very skilled at their preferred lightsaber form and specialization. They have become extremely wise and discerning, learning to focus on meditation and communing with the Force above all else. This gives a Jedi Master a broader range of Force abilities, and the ability of sustaining them more effectively, demonstrating superior control and power compared to most Knights. Because of this, the Council trusts Masters in the Order with the most important and critical missions available. Masters like Qui-Gon are sent into the most dangerous situations, like the Trade Federation blockade of Naboo, where a deadly confrontation is almost guaranteed. Masters are also trusted with the most sensitive information and act as the Republic's highest Jedi diplomats. Jedi Masters can still take on apprentices as well, offering a much different perspective to their Padawans than your average Knight would. Some Jedi Masters were so skilled in their area of expertise that they were often elevated to other roles that were slightly above the rank of Master. This is level 5 of a Jedi, the High Master. I completely made up that term, but I think it's a good way to describe Jedi that are slightly above the rank of Master in a sense. They're the best at what they do. A prime example of this is the role of Jedi Battle Master. There was only ever one Battle Master, and to qualify for the role, you had to be one of, if not the best lightsaber duelist in the entire Order, and be the best lightsaber instructor. For many years, this title was held by Master Sindralig. Sindralig was renowned for his spiritual stamina and mental toughness, as well as the ability to teach many lightsaber forms and use different saber techniques. Another example could be Jocasta Nu, who was the chief librarian and primary guardian of the Jedi Archives. She managed the entire archives and was one of the only Jedi with access to the Council's vault and numerous restricted sections and texts the archives held. Jocasta Nu was able to achieve this role because of her expansive knowledge covering any subject you could ever think of. Darth Sidious even considered her one of the single most intelligent and knowledgeable people in the entire galaxy. During the Clone Wars, other Jedi were elevated to a higher status as High Generals in the Grand Army of the Republic. Only some of the Order's best, like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, could achieve this role. But for most Jedi, the natural progression to level up past the rank of Master is to join the Jedi High Council. This is level 6 of a Jedi, a Council member. To get on the Council, a Jedi must be a Master. But not every Master was worthy of a seat on the High Council. The Council consisted of 12 of the Order's greatest Masters, each of whom was uniquely talented in their own profession. Some members were so critical to the functioning of the Order that they were given lifetime seats, requiring those Jedi to serve for the rest of their lives. Plo Koon and Ki-Adi-Mundi were 2 members with lifetime seats. New members were only added in the event of a sitting member's death. Others were simply given a long-term seat, giving them the option to resign if they saw fit. Believe it or not, Jocasta Nu was actually on the Council for quite some time, but she decided to step down and take up the job as Chief Librarian. Lastly, some Jedi were only given limited-term seats, with a set expiration date. Typically, these Jedi were added during a crisis, or if a vacancy needed to be filled temporarily. As leaders of the Jedi Order, the Council was responsible for physically and spiritually guiding the Order, ensuring it remained true to the light side of the Force and its dedication to the Republic. The Council was in charge of numerous day-to-day tasks, from assigning missions and Padawans to Jedi Knights, punishing misconduct from Padawans and other Jedi, overseeing the Jedi trials, and meeting with the Supreme Chancellor to collaborate with the Republic. On serious matters, the Council took to vote to make a decision on the best solution. And in some cases, serious threats to the Republic required a council member to personally take missions on behalf of the Republic. But most important of all, the council had exclusive access to the Jedi Holocron Vault, giving them way more knowledge and power than any other Jedi. And with great power comes great responsibility. The council was in charge of making sure Jedi Knights were sent to recruit new younglings to the Order and study Sith relics to understand the dark side of the Force better. This allowed the council to meditate together on the future of the Order, trying their best to govern the Order in such a way that it would last for centuries to come. But even above the Jedi Council, there's still one last level to complete your journey as a Jedi. This is level 7 of a Jedi, a Grand Master. Before we get to Grand Master though, it's important to remember that there is another rank in this level that is just above the Council. The elected leader of the Jedi High Council is the Master of the Order. During the end of the Republic, this role was filled by Jedi Master Mace Windu. The Master of the Order often represented the entire Council before the Republic. Their say was the most important during council meetings, as they would dictate the discussion and voting process throughout. But of course, the highest rank of all in the Jedi Order is the Grand Master. While the Master of the Order led the Council, a Grand Master led the entire Jedi Order. This role was typically held by the wisest and oldest Jedi. Naturally, this meant that Yoda was the Grand Master of the Order for many years. As Grand Master, his role was to lead by example. Yoda was often seen teaching classes for younglings or taking time to meditate with Jedi Knights who were still young in their journey. While the Jedi Council sought to lead and direct the Order, often the Grand Master's input and example had the most effect on the Order. During the Clone Wars, when Yoda began to be surrounded by darkness, the rest of the Order was severely affected as a result.